Word. Okay. This is for Shanice, English 211, revision session, May 21st. Okay, first, what did we gain from, did you do any of the movies of the Beowulf?
I did the Beowulf.
Which one did you watch? Did you get the Angelina Jolie one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, responses to it. Major themes, an old sin that has to be paid for. The lies we tell will come back to haunt us. A leadership crisis. The old king, the one who is played by the British actor, what's his name? Anyway, Sir whatever. He has told a lie that destroyed his wife and his marriage, yes? And in actual fact, didn't it drive his wife to suicide?
I didn't see all that in the movie.
Okay, well, in any case, no, that was another version where she jumped over the tower. He had sex with Grendel's mother. In fact, he created Grendel through that sexual affair. But he destroyed his marriage through the lie that he perpetuated. And he became a drunkard and really a failed leader. And in actual fact, when Grendel comes along as part of a curse now, killing with each visit, yes? He is seeking revenge and seeking the missing father, the rejecting father, who is a king. Eventually, Beowulf, who is one of the legendary leaders of the Norsemen, comes there and says he can fight Grendel and win and free them from this visiting curse. But Beowulf is a great warrior, but you notice that he is also sexually aggressive towards the wife, the king's wife. He apparently slays Grendel in one of the confrontations, yes? And the king commits suicide. He hands over his crown, he hands over his wife, and then he kills himself. He jumps over the parapet. Remember that. But we are seeing the themes of guilt and karma. In other words, the evil you do will come back to haunt you one way or another. But of course, the evil comes back to haunt the kingdom as well. But are we also looking at that powerful theme of the search for the missing father?
Yes.
Yes. And what is interesting about it, of course, is that Grendel, the monster, Beowulf cuts off the hand, but Grendel is actually able to be regenerated by his mother's magical power. That's Angelina Jolie, right? Who represents, have we seen these archetypes before? Sex as power, sex as manipulation, yes? Sex as what? A weapon, right? And when when Beowulf goes to confront her, remember, she seduces him too. So we're looking at this major theme of sex as a form of power, as leverage, as seduction, as nothing at all to do with love. Yes?
Yes.
And of course, in the end, Beowulf himself has to give his life in the final battle with the monster, yes? Who is a recreation of Grendel that Angelina Jolie has created. You remember he comes up as a bird, right?
That wasn't the movie that you sent me.
The fire-breathing bird. You didn't, but no, but didn't you see it? Get it online. The Angelina Jolie movie.
The link that you sent me.
Yeah.
I watched that, but none of that was in it.
No.
No,
Okay.
I'll find it tonight though. I'll find it.
Okay, but in the end, what we see as major themes are what? Guilt, the power of guilt. What? The need for redemption, but the need to do what? To take responsibility for our actions. Then, of course, the power of karma. We will reap what we have sown, one way or another. And also what? Are we looking at retribution and justice?
Yes.
Even over a long time? And are we looking also at leadership? That true manhood and true male leadership have to be coming from people who take responsibility for their behavior and people who have ethics and values. Yes? Okay, that it's not just physical strength that makes the leader. It's inner spiritual values as well. It's a powerful story, and it's one that in actual fact is connected somehow to the Gawain story. You notice that in Gawain we have that same theme of sex as a weapon. The lady who is the wife of the Green Knight. When Gawain goes to the castle in search of the Green Knight to keep his word for this confrontation, yes? The lady nurses him back to health, but she comes to his bedrooms 3 times to seduce him. The first time it is with a priceless ring, a priceless gem. We're talking about something like the Hope Diamond of India or something. We're not talking about just any ring, gem. Materialism. He says no. The second time it's with sex. He says no. But the third time, she says, well, I have a magical scarf, which if you wear as a belt around your body, no harm can come to you. And Beowulf knows that he is going into battle with a magical creature whose head, when he cut it off in King Arthur's castle, and it rolled on the ground and people kicked it, picked up that head, put it under his arm, and rode off laughing. You remember that? Yes, the Green Knight. So, Gawain is vulnerable. Is this his crisis of faith as well? Because in other words, if we have true faith, we don't feel we need any magical, mysterious object to protect us. We feel that we have divine protection. Yes? So the lady kind of hits him at his weakest moment of fear. And, of course, when Gawain goes to meet the Green Knight has a surprise for him. He says, well, I am Sir Berkilac, the person whose wife has come to visit you, the person in whose house you were nursed back to health. Yes? And I know my wife came to visit you. But this is after Gawain keeps his word and allows the Green Knight to hit at him and try to cut off his head. But what does the Green Knight do? He gives him a cut on his neck. And he says, I spare your life. Why? Because I am Sir Berkilac, and I know my wife tried to seduce you, and I know that other men would not have said no to her. And therefore, I am sparing your life. And Gawain is overwhelmed, of course, by shame and guilt. And the Green Knight says to him, well, forgive yourself, because not many men could have resisted my wife. And I set this up. I know all that went on. I know of her 3 visits to you, and I know of the green scarf that you are wearing. So Gawain then says, I will wear the green scarf, not because of its obvious value, it's encrusted with emeralds and so on, or the beautiful workmanship, but I will wear it as a symbol of my shame. In that book, it has a beautiful way of saying, the last book I lent you.
Oh.
I will, because once one has done something, one cannot undo it. Again, the theme of responsibility and guilt. And he says, the scar on my neck will be a symbol of my moment of weakness, my shame. Yes? And I will wear the scarf similarly, as a reminder to me when others admire me as a knight, a reminder to me of my time of weakness. It's a powerful story, and it's one, of course, that modern readers will find interesting precisely because I think we live in a world which is so saturated with sexual symbolism on TV, and so saturated with versions of sex without responsibility. Whereas in the Gawain story, and in the Beowulf story too, we're very aware that sex is used as a weapon by the women and as a trap. But we're very aware that the writers of these stories are telling us that there is more to sex than just the body. Yes? And that the results and implications of sex go far, far, far beyond the sex act. And in that sense, then, do you as a modern reader find these stories quite relevant even today?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. In other words, they say quite a mouthful to us about the meaning and the significance that should be attached to sex. Yes? Okay. Now, if we're looking at it that way, are we aware then that these writers were coming from a Christian era? But both the Beowulf writer and the Gawain writer seem to use dualism. Do they seem to, and if you want to say intertwine really, and enmesh and integrate together Christian views of life as well as pagan or non-Christian symbols and beliefs? Remember that the Beowulf story is set in a time when the European culture was saturated with, and apparently there really did exist, all kinds of animals that we would call dragons today. Yes? And it also, there was a lot of belief in various gods and goddesses of the land. Yes? Then you notice that with Gawain, when Gawain is on the journey to the Green Knight's castle, he meets all kinds of dragons and monsters that he has to fight. But most importantly, do we have can I borrow that version of the book that I just lent you? We have what? The image of Gawain's shield. What is it? Gawain is a Christian knight. Do the Christian knights have a code of ethics and 7 knightly virtues, or is it 5 knightly virtues? Yes. And they are supposed to be dedicated to the Virgin Mary. We are told over and over again that Gawain's patroness is the Virgin Mary. Now, interestingly, Gawain's shield that he wears in front of him, you know what a shield is, on the outside, it has the pentacle, the 5-pointed star, which is a symbol representing excellence, Pentangle, or some people call it the pentagram, a 5-pointed star that can be drawn without removing the pencil or the pen from the paper. This is supposed to represent, in Babylonian or Solomon culture, it's supposed to represent excellence. But it has a Christian symbolism representing the 5 joys that Mary took in her child, the baby Christ. Yes. But interestingly, though the outside has this Babylonian symbol, the pentacle, the inside has a portrait of the Virgin Mary. Now, this portrait is important because, of course, she is his patroness. And before Gawain leaves Arthur's castle to go on this journey, when people are saying to him, do not go. The person you are going to fight is a supernatural creature. Your head will not grow back on your shoulders when he cuts it off. Yes? And Gawain knows that too. It doesn't need to be told. Yes? What is it he does before he goes to the castle? In need of moral support, he goes where? To the chapel of the Virgin Mary to pray. And why would he have the picture of the Virgin Mary on the inside of his shield, where he can see it? Exactly. It's like a reminder, a talisman for him. This is his patroness, his protector. Yes? And he can see it all the time. You know, these people who have pictures of their loved ones on their keychains, on their phones, they're constantly seeing these pictures. Exactly. Or they have a picture of the loved one in a locket that they wear on a chain around their neck. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but are we looking at that principle of dualism again? The pagan and the Christian. Yes? And what are the knightly virtues? I don't know if they show them to you in your book, but are the knightly virtues spelled out to us very clearly as behaviors that the true Christian knight must conform to? Now, being a knight was a profession, you know. You didn't do anything but be a knight. You understand? And you supported your lord, who Arthur was the lord in this case, yes? And you lived by the rules of the knight, the true knight, yes? So, of course, then, we're aware that Gawain has to live by this set of rules. And one of them, of course, is chastity, cleanness. In other words, the true knight must remain sexually pure. Now that's one of the reasons why the lady, the Green Knight's wife, attacked Gawain through sex. It was a test, in other words, of his knightly virtues. Yes? Okay. Now, obviously then, are we looking at a story that is very much concerned with the same thing we've seen elsewhere, values analysis? Yes or no? Analysis of values. In other words, is the test of Gawain this journey to the Green Knight's castle to keep his word? He made a promise. The Green Knight arrives between Christmas and New Year's at Arthur's castle and says, "Oh, I have come for fun. It's a time of celebration. You notice I have not worn all my weaponry and my armor, and I'm barefoot. But are you just a bunch of boys? Are you in Arthur's court really men? But let's play a game. It's called the beheading game. I will stand still, and one of your knights, if you're really knights and not just overgrown boys, will swing the axe at my neck. And then we will meet again in a year's time, and you will stand still, whoever it is, and I will swing the axe." Now, are we looking at Gawain in the youthful, impulsive stage of manhood? The leap before you look stage? Yes, he volunteers. And he swings the axe, and he cuts off the Green Knight's head. And the blood spurts. And the Green Knight laughs. The head rolls under the table, and some of the people kick it and laugh. Green Knight picks up his head and laughs, and jumps onto his horse with the bleeding head under his arm and says, "Now remember, as a knight, you must keep your word to me, because you have to meet me in a year's time, when I will then be the one swinging the axe. But if you are a true knight, you will keep your word." Now, of course, at this point, are we aware that Gawain is in way over his head? Yes. Because his head won't grow back if it's cut off. Okay. So then, we notice that we're using a mix of the first-person narrator, who occasionally says "I," and the third-person narrator, who sees everything. But by the end of that sequence of events, part 2, what is it the narrator says? "And now, Gawain, think. Danger is yours to overcome, and this game brings you danger. Can this game be won?" He is foreshadowing and suggesting that Gawain is up against unconquerable odds, because he's up against a magical creature, the Green Knight. But Gawain decides that he must keep his word as a true knight. Yes, against all odds. So are we also looking at the knightly virtue of honor and courage? Yes. But are we also looking at the theme of life as a journey? In other words, is it a test involved in this journey? It's not just a physical test, it's a metaphysical, spiritual test. And of course, he goes through the forest, the wilderness, he's frozen half to death, and he cries out to the Virgin Mary for help, and she helps him. And suddenly this beautiful castle appears out of the mist. It's the castle of Sir Berkilac. Yes? And the Sir Berkilac and his beautiful wife receive him, and nurse him back to health, etc., etc. But while she's nursing him back to health, the beautiful wife is also trying to seduce him. She comes to his bedroom 3 times. Are we mimicking the 3 temptations of Christ? Yes. Okay. So, and as we said, he resists her, but when she plays on his fear, his crisis of faith, is when, because he knows he's up against a supernatural enemy. Who would not be afraid? And that is when she gets through, because he lies to Sir Berkilac. Sir Berkilac goes on the hunt and says, I will bring back home whatever I've won in the hunt. It's the fox, the deer, and finally the boar. And each animal is, of course, symbolic. But in the end, Gawain lies. And then he goes to meet, because he can't say, well, you know, your wife came to my bedroom and we exchanged kisses, but that was all. But I took a green magical scarf from her because I'm going to meet this terrible Green Knight. Because he doesn't even know he's talking to the Green Knight in disguise, yes? And so on and so on. But at the end, the final climax, the denouement, as the French put it, D-E-N-O-U-M-E-N-T, the unraveling of the plot. The Green Knight tells him, I know all of this. And I am Sir Berkilac, and I am the Green Knight, and I sent my wife to tempt you. And I have to tell you, compared to other knights, you are like a pearl compared to a pea. Because other knights would not have resisted. And then Gawain is very humbled, and he is heartbroken. And he says, you know, well, the Green Knight cut him and left a mark on his neck. Of course, a scar, yes? And he says, well, I will wear this scarf as I wear the scar on my neck as a reminder of my moment of weakness. Yes? And, is that right? Wow. And he goes back to Arthur's castle, where ironically people greet him and say, oh, we will all wear a green scarf, you know, like Gawain. But for Gawain, the scarf, he tells them, the scarf is not a sign of honor. It's a sign of my moment of weakness. Rap, it's cold. So, okay then. Is it a highly symbolic story that we're looking at? Yes or no? Yes. And is it a story that involves a lot of values analysis? In other words, it's not just about some magical creature and this man who, in a very teenager's moment, accepts a challenge from a stranger, and he doesn't even know who the stranger is. Yes, he says to King Arthur, let me play this green man's game. He's naive. Yes? But of course, is the Green Knight part of a plot by Merlin, an old enemy of Arthur? Yes. Merlin the sorcerer, the magician. But the truth is, we in modern times, as I said before, do not really believe that there are magical creatures like the Green Knight. Yes? But we are well aware that there are women like the wife of the Green Knight. She's a pawn in a power struggle among powerful men. But is she typical of the woman we have seen, Grendel's mother, Delilah, these types of temptresses? Is she the woman as temptress, who uses sex as leverage, as a weapon, as a game, yes, and as power, and who uses her beauty in the same way. Yes or no? Of course. So, are we as modern readers then? We're kind of drawn into the romantic details of the story and the magical details and so on. But does it have a really realistic and up-to-date reminder for us, suggesting that, well, there's more to sex than just the sex act, but also a reminder that true manhood is about having the courage to keep your word, that your word must be your bond, and that true manhood is also about taking responsibility for your own actions. And we see these qualities in Gawain very much. Remember, Gawain is the youngest of all of Arthur's knights, you know. So in a sense, when he volunteers, when the Green Knight comes there to the castle, he's probably proving himself in a way, yes? But in the end, are we left with a sense that the journey to meet the Green Knight and so on, it has all ended with Gawain, a real man? He started out a very youthful man, but has this journey made him a real man? Okay. Question then, and you have to talk to me now. To whom would you recommend this story? Either of them, the film, or to whom would you recommend the Gawain story? And why? Can you talk here for me, please?
Probably, especially in the Caribbean, how men are they're very immature. They don't do things, they don't think very much before they act.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the young men of today would probably benefit from the movie,
Mm-hmm.
in the book.
Precisely because it stresses true manly virtues.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you think is it strictly for a Christian audience or a Christian readership?
No, Mom.
No.
No.
Why do you say that?
Because it's got all sorts of magic and stuff in it.
It has the non-Christian elements in it as well.
Mm.
Is it, however, a sexist book? Does it show women in a negative light except for the Virgin Mary?
Yes, Mom.
And she is a static figure. Queen Guinevere is beautiful and wonderful, beautiful and the fairest of all the ladies, and they're all like wallflowers in the castle. Yes?
Yes, Mom. Especially how he says, that the wife is like Eve.
But the wife of the Green Knight, I'm not even sure she was like Eve. Is she, in a sense, like some of the women in Greek mythology who transform themselves into different ways?
Yes.
Is the Green Knight himself a transformer, a mythological creature who can take different forms for different purposes? So we see it as a work that isn't strictly directed towards a Christian readership. Yes? You say, but is it a work that is sexist? Does it show women as either passive or dangerous temptresses?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
What then, how would this apply? How would this appeal to a modern female reader?
I guess they would see it as very demeaning, especially to women.
Yeah. Okay. So you would more recommend it to male modern readers.
Yes, ma'am.
You think that the female modern reader would be turned off by it?
The majority. I mean, even the ones that are kind of like the example in the story, they would find it very. They wouldn't like it.
Okay. But does it have any life lessons? The life lessons for the male readers are obvious. What are the life lessons for the female readers?
From my interpretation, I would say that you shouldn't give all the power to men. Like, she obeys what the Green Knight says, that she should sexually tempt the knight.
Mm-hmm.
So she's giving him more power over her.
So, in a sense, it's still showing women as servants of men.
Yes.
Who use their beauty and their charm in the service of powerful men.
Yes.
Okay. What life lessons did it tell you about sex? This one and the Beowulf story, did they have some relevant life lessons about sex in life?
Like, you shouldn't be so eager to participate in physical. I don't know.
That we should look before we leave.
Yes.
That there's a whole lot more to sex than just the sex act. Does it also remind us that we must attach certain values and ethics to our sexual behavior?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that a very modern message?
Yes.
And one that's very relevant to us today in the age of AIDS, etc.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. To be continued. Now there's one poem, the sonnet 1-2, was it 129?
Yes.
The expense of spirit in a waste of shame is lost in action. Is it a direct statement from Shakespeare on the power and the dangers and the attractiveness of sex? Yeah, you have it there with you. Can I? You will notice that the sound imagery, yes, is very harsh. The expense of spirit in a waste of shame is lost in action. Until action, lust is perjured, murderous, bloody, full of blame, savage, extreme, rude, cruel, not to trust. Enjoyed no sooner than despised, straight. Past reason hunted, and no sooner had. Past reason hated, as a swallowed bait on purpose, laid to make the taker mad. Mad in pursuit and possession. So it gives a very dangerous and frightening view of sex. Yes, it's a hook to drive people crazy. Yet all the world well knows this, yet none knows well to shun the heaven that leads men and women to this hell. Does Shakespeare capture for us the dualism of sex? Before a dream, before a joy proposed behind a dream, a bliss in proof and proved a very woe. He gives us that sense that sex is this dualistic, two-sided thing. It's blissful but so dangerous and so hurtful in its implications. Is that part, is that in line with the messages about the dualism of sex that we got from the Gawain story? That sex is a powerful source of attraction, but in actual fact, a dangerous thing? Yeah? Okay. Let's continue then. If we're thinking of life lessons, I want you to start writing about the life lessons you are learning from these works. You finished reading the Othello. Okay. Thank you. We'll continue. Uh-huh. I sent you an essay topic, yes?
Yes, sir.
What do you have it? Mm-hmm.
No,